Welcome to episode 447 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Meyers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I'm interviewing writer-director Daniel Benedict, who just did a cool 80s throwback horror film called The Bloody Man. We talk about his career and how he was able to get this latest film produced. He has some great actors from 80s horror movies, so we talk about that, how he was able to get them in his film. So stay tuned for that interview. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking or sharing it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mentioned in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcast, and then just look for episode number 447. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks, along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide. I'll teach you how to write a professional logline inquiry letter and how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. Really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. So now let's get into the main segment. Today I am interviewing writer-director Daniel Benedict. Here is the interview. Welcome, Daniel, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So to start out, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up and how did you get interested in the entertainment business?
So I am from Kentucky. I still live here. Growing up, I always was fascinated with, artsy things, I guess, creative things. I always wanted to make commercials. Like in middle school, I found like a paper from like my middle school, like a career class or something. It said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I put a commercial artist, meaning like I wanted to make television commercials, and I get to do that now, which is amazing. And so I've always been interested in that. I've played in bands over the years and made crappy home movies and stuff, and had to make the covers for them and the music videos. So I've always done that sort of creative thing, and I going to conventions and meeting other filmmakers and artists and things, just it helps keep me motivated, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So
so
answer your question, I hope.
Yeah. So let's dig into that a little bit.
Okay.
So were you a film major in college? How did you get this career going where you're doing TV commercials? And when you say you're working you're directing these TV commercials, and that's sort of your core business, and then you're doing these feature films sort of on the side to continue to push that end of your career.
Yeah. So I got a job. Being a graphic designer for uniforms for a company, and I saw a job listing for car commercials. Like somebody needed some car commercials made, and I was like, that sounds kind of fun. I want to get into that, and I kind of showed up at my interview with just like literally an armful of just like random stuff. Like here's a DVD that of a movie that I did. Here's some artwork and stuff. And it was totally unprofessional for me to do that, I guess, but it worked. So they hired me. So I started making car commercials, which led to other things and freelance work.
And just where did you get the background just to be able to edit and to do all this stuff? I mean, you went in here. You obviously could work the camera. I mean, where did you pick up those skills that you felt confident enough to go in and pitch yourself to this car company?
So in high school and shortly thereafter, like my main focus was like being like a rock star, I guess. I had a band, and and we did albums, and I wanted to do music videos. So I would, I just forced myself to learn editing to do that. And I've edited back on like VHS to VHS like systems and stuff back in the day, but around 2000, I edited my first movie on a computer, and it was like, this is amazing. Like you can just pull this over here and like so yeah.
Okay, perfect. So let's talk about your recent film, The Bloody Man, starring Tuesday Knight and Lisa Wilcox. Maybe just start out. You can give us a quick picture log line. What is this film all about?
So it's a movie set in the 80s. It's about a family, a child in particular who loses his mom and has to deal with all the things that come with that. And he's struggling with all of his relationships at school, and he's really into toys and comic books and cartoons and stuff. And he has this comic, and like he accidentally through the comic summons this being called the Bloody Man that terrorizes his family, and they have to learn how to come together and resolve their family dynamic in order to beat the villain.
Gotcha. And so where did this idea come from? What was sort of the genesis of this story?
So when I was around 8 years old, 8 or 9, I was in second grade. I checked out all these any kind of ghost story book or any kind of like horror, monster book from my school's library. I'd always check them out. And I guess I wanted to make my own. So like I wrote these stories called The Bloody Man in elementary school. And my wife and I found them, years later back in 2014, and we read them, and they were terrible. I mean, they're ridiculous, story and grammar, and it didn't make sense. But we were like, our next thing should be this. It'd be awesome to rewrite this and make it. And so a child wrote it.
Okay. Came up with the idea. Very nice. Okay. So let's talk about the writing of the screenplay. I noticed on IMDb, you have a shared writing credit on this with Casi Clark. Maybe you can talk about that relationship a little bit. How do you guys work together? Are you in the same room? Do you do index cards together and then go off and write your own scenes? Do you trade scenes back and forth? Maybe just describe sort of your collaboration, how you guys work together, what tools you use, anything that would be helpful.
Okay. So Casi and I, when we did this one, we did, we were in the same room. We brainstormed. We would jot down ideas, and if we were separate, if we had any ideas, we would put them in our phone or something. But we definitely together, like drew out an outline, did note cards, and our plot points and structure and all that stuff together. But as far as writing, we would write separately. I would stay up late. I'm a night owl, so I would stay up really late, write however many pages I could. The next day she would come in, read what I wrote, go back, edit, tweak, whatever, delete, and then pick up from where I left off, and then write more until she was done. And then that night I would do the same. I would go back and edit, and we did that. It took us about a year, I think, or over a year and a half, I think, to write that. And our late friend Dean Steffen, who was our kind of our editor for this, he would butcher. We would send him pages and scripts and stuff, and he would just mutilate it and make it better. And he was. I met him at a CarCon convention. He was the head writer on the 2002 He-Man cartoon, and hilarious guy, very good at what he does. So we owe a lot of the script to him. But yeah, one of my favorite things when he first read the first draft, he wrote back and he was like, "I'm 10 pages in and I have no idea what the bleep this movie is about." so yeah.
You mentioned just the plot points and the structure. What do you sort of adhere to? Are you a Blake Snyder fan, Sid Field? What does sort of your structure look like? How do you structure a screenplay?
As basic as as normal as possible. We try to adhere to the just save the cat kind of a thing. We didn't try to think outside too much. I mean, that movie ended up being kind of long, but no, yeah, we wanted all of our points to be pretty much on page blank. This needs to happen. We try to stick to that. I mean, as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. What are some lessons you learned from writing this screenplay?
that it's always good to have people help you write it. It's good. It's great to have people read it and give you advice, and never like always take or always like listen to advice. Don't ever just don't ever think that you're 100% right. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And just what does your development process look like? It sounds like you had this this established writer kind of reviewing your pages. Did you write this knowing you were going to go and produce it yourself? Did you have actors in mind? Did you get feedback from them? But what does just sort of the overall development process look like as you went through doing the rewrites?
We always knew that we would be making it ourselves. Well, honestly, when we first had the idea, we were like, this was back in 2014. Stranger Things didn't exist. There wasn't a lot of like 80s stuff out there. There was maybe like one or two like throwback movies like that. So like we thought, or at least I did. I was like, this is a good idea. We'll make an 80s movie, but we'll make it now, but we'll make it like an 80s movie. And so like I thought that would be kind of a selling point. So maybe we could take this to somebody somewhere, and they would be like, that's a great idea. But by the time we got to writing it, it was 20, or while we were writing it, Stranger Things was announced season 1, and we were kind of like, man. And but at that point we kind of already thought that we would be making it ourselves, just because of I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We just where we were, and we didn't live out in California or Atlanta or any place. But anyway, as far as actors, Cassie and I were huge convention nuts. We were always at any regional or even further away conventions, horror conventions especially, and so we built a lot of relationships and met a lot of people and became friends with a lot of people, and especially Lisa and Tuesday. And whenever we gave them, or we had mentioned, we're like, hey, we're writing this thing. Would you guys be interested in reading it and seeing if you're interested? And they were like, absolutely. And when they did, they were like, we're in. We love this. It's a charming script and et cetera. And so I've always kind of had those two in mind, especially Lisa, because when I first, I'd made a bunch of short films and features and stuff, throughout my life, a lot of super zero budget stuff. But like in 2010, I was at a convention. I didn't know conventions existed. And then in 2010, I came across like the website for a local convention in Louisville, and I was like, oh, you can meet like actors from like movies that I like at a place. Like that's awesome. So I went there and I met Lisa, just as a fan, just getting an autograph, and I saw all the other filmmakers and artists and actors and stuff, and I was like, this is awesome. It's like, I'm gonna like buckle down, and I'm going to one day have a movie with nightmare actors in it, and then Lisa being the one that I met there, and so a couple of movies later, it happened. So it's a good ending to the story.
Yeah, and so that brings up a couple of good questions. So Tuesday night, you met her in sort of a similar way. She was doing these conventions, and you just would go up to her and eventually got to know her.
Yeah, we met her in Texas, her and her mom, and then we were in Chicago, and by this point, we were friends with a lot of those people, and we were talking to Tuesday, and we were like, hey, do you remember meeting us in Texas? And we were like, we're making a movie, and she had just put out like a new album or a new EP or something, and I was like, I would love to, we're making this 80s movie. I would love to have one of your songs, can we license it for the soundtrack? And she was like, sure, that sounds great. And she's like, can I read the script? And I was like, sure. And like I said earlier, she loved it, and she was like, I want to be in it. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And she wrote 2 songs and recorded 2 songs for the movie, and then we used a couple others from the 80's, her previous albums, and
Gotcha.
it's awesome.
And so maybe you can give us some tips on going to these conventions and approaching these actors and what is actually appropriate. I mean, I'm sure that these actors, sometimes weird folks show up and, these actors maybe don't quite know what to do. And so there must be some line, you don't want to be too friendly, but by the same token, you got to get to know these people and network a little bit. Maybe you can talk about that dynamic a little bit. You show up as a fan, but ultimately you're looking to really network as a peer.
Well, I have to give most of the credit to Casi, my wife. She's the one that is good with people,
okay,
and having conversations. But I guess just and maybe don't be a weirdo. I mean, I feel like I'm a weirdo, so like I guess just be natural, be genuine, just be yourself. Don't be don't be nervous. I suppose I never. Only once was I truly starstruck, and that was when I met Alan Oppenheimer. He was the voice of Skeletor on the original He-Man cartoon, and I was at a convention doing interviews, and when I went up to him and started interviewing him on camera, he started talking, and the sound of his voice. I mean, he's just like the characters from He-Man. And like I went back, I reverted to like my childhood. I was like so like giddy and excited and like just overcome. But anyway, I'm getting off point. But yeah, just they're they are human beings like the rest of us. They're all, everyone that I've met has been really nice and kind, and I don't think that they fake it. I don't think they're doing it just to sell you an autograph. I think they really enjoy meeting fans and at the convention.
So once you had the script done, it sounds like you're doing the networking with the cast. What were your next steps? How did you guys ultimately raise money and put this project together?
Besides selling organs and maxing out credit cards and stuff, which we, pretty much did anyway, but we did Kickstarter, which, it's kind of overdone these days, I guess, but we did it and we were successful. We had a couple other people help us financially, donate and kind of invest in our film. And yeah, we were able to get enough money and use our own to squeak by and still make the movie that we pretty much wanted to make. Excuse me.
So talk about, once you had the film done, what was your avenue to finding a distributor? I think we connected through a distributor that reaches out to me and proposes me interview for the movie. But how did you ultimately get the distributor? Did you go to festivals? Did you do a festival run? And I'm curious, since you're in this, and I asked this sort of for my own horror film somewhat, I've never been to one of these horror conventions. Do you go back now as a filmmaker and try and promote your film at these same horror conventions that you've been going to? But just talk about that a little bit, film festivals, how do you get your distributor? And then what have you done to promote the film, including anything at these conventions?
So yeah, conventions are a great way to meet people. And distribution companies are there. They have booths set up and you can meet people that way. There's the internet is a great tool. The internet's the best and worst thing that's ever happened to humanity. But for this Wild Eye, we had a movie distributed by them before, Bunny, back in, I think it came out in 2015, and so I already knew those guys, and I had reached out to several. We a lot of times we got a bunch of solicitations from distributors. I guess maybe putting it on IMDb. People, companies search out films that way, and also, at conventions as well. But we talked to several, and I just had such a good relationship with Wild Eye that we just decided to work together again. But yeah, just find somebody online. Go to Walmart and look at the back of a DVD cover and see who distributes what, and find their website and contact. Just doesn't hurt to reach out. You may send out 100 emails and get 2 responses, but
Mm-hmm.
better than 0.
Did you go to film festivals with this? Did you try and do a festival run?
A little bit with Bunny that I mentioned earlier. We submitted it everywhere, just trying to get people biting on it. Then a lot of rejections, but it did go a lot. It did go to a lot of film fests, but this one we were kind of more selective.
Mm-hmm.
The goal wasn't really to like do the film fest circuit. The goal was to just get it made and get it out there,
Mm-hmm.
and just distributed. But we did pick a few, like Horror Hound, and which is the best horror convention there around.
Now, what do you say you did the car convention? Do you get a booth and try and sell DVDs? Like, do you actually try and promote the film that way, or is it just you do a screening like a film festival type of a thing?
Both. It just depends. I mean, like our lives are so hectic, and we have 4 kids under 4
Mm-hmm.
now, so like that we don't get to do that very often. But yeah, when there's something semi close, like in Lexington or Louisville, or maybe up in Indianapolis or Nashville or wherever, yeah, we will get a booth ourselves and try to connect with our audience, or sell our stuff or whatever. But not too often.
Mm-hmm.
More so, like there's like, oh, the Toronto Film Festival, let's try to submit it to that and get rejected and
yeah,
say that we submitted it. But
yeah. So perfect. So just what advice do you have for filmmakers like yourself, screenwriters trying to break in? Do you have any just really sage advice you can offer to them?
I would never take any advice from me, and to say sage advice is comedy. But write what you want to, what you are passionate about. Write what makes you happy. Write something that you want to see. Because if you want to see it, and chances are somebody else would want to see it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But then on the same or on the other side of that coin, I would say I see a lot of stuff, and I'm guilty of it as well. Like you put yourself into your writing or into your movies. A lot of times people will like write the protagonist in their movie is like who they see themselves, or who they see themselves, or who they want themselves to be in like a fantasy world, which is cool. But sometimes it kind of sometimes that just it kind of comes through, and you're like, yeah, that doesn't work. But I would just say, just go ahead.
I wonder, you said on the one hand, write something that you would want to see because there's most likely other people. And that's obviously great advice. I wonder, though, how much, in this particular case, you wanted to do this 80s movie. Do you ever kick yourself as someone who has to help produce this thing? You're making your life a lot harder making it an 80s movie with the clothes and the car, it just, especially low budget, you're making things a little bit more difficult for yourself. How much do that, when you're, getting your producer head, how much do you weigh those types of things?
Like during the process or after?
Just throughout, before the process, during the process, and then after the process. I mean, did this occur to you? You've produced enough. You must have known that doing something that was a period piece like that was definitely going to raise production costs a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I knew that it would be a bigger challenge, especially with like set pieces and stuff, and like, and when we wrote the script, I started big, and normally I would try to write around what I have available, or what our limitations are. But this one I was just like, let's just write the moon and see what happens, and see how much we have to pull back. And so we during production we had to have all 80s cars, and people had to not be wearing anything that wasn't 80s, or at least nondescript stuff. And so beforehand I wasn't too worried about it. I just thought that it would come together. I was like, I've got a lot of 80s stuff myself, and I've got a lot of friends, and we'll go to thrift stores and flea markets and stuff. But during it was really tough. to keep track of everything. You know, we had like master lists of everything, props and decor and costumes, etc., and hair. Every actor had their own like info sheet, and like their hair had to be like this, and so it was kind of a nightmare. Cassie did a wonderful job producing and taking care of all of that organization. But when you have just for one little example, like there's a scene where there's a car crash, or there's an accident scene, and we're in a neighborhood. And even though we let all the neighbors know that we were filming and what we were doing and stuff, and if they could kind of keep their cars and trucks like away or in the garage or whatever, they didn't. So you've got these scenes where there's a 2015 pickup truck right there in your shot, so you've got to try to put somebody in front of it or mask it out later or whatever. So I guess maybe editing was a bigger nightmare than the filming, but yeah, it was yeah.
Gotcha.
I don't know. I wouldn't want to do that again.
Yeah, I think that sums it up. Yeah. So, well, how can people see The Bloody Man? Do you know what the release schedule is going to be like?
Right. It was released on Amazon today. You can rent it or purchase it, at least in the U.S. Mm-hmm. There was another list of cable companies like VOD and stuff. Vudu, I think, either today or on or around today. So at least right now, Amazon.
Okay. Perfect. And what's the best way for people to keep up with what you're doing and contact you? Potentially Twitter, Facebook, a blog, anything you're comfortable sharing, I'll round up for the show notes.
So yeah, we of course have Facebook and Instagram. It's just Red Serial Films, and serial is spelled, like a serial number or serial killer.
Okay.
And then redserialfilms.com is our website.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'll put those in the show notes. Have you seen anything recently that you thought was really great that you can recommend to our screenwriting audience? Anything on Netflix, Hulu, HBO, anything you think that your screenwriters could maybe benefit from checking out? It's just maybe more cheesy than, or I'm not thinking through like writing, but like the last Spider-Man movie was totally awesome. Mm-hmm. And then the latest, I would say the Marvel movie that just came out that I love, Doctor Strange. Okay.
And I know that it's kind of, people that are into screenwriting don't necessarily like want to hear about like Marvel movies, but I really enjoyed those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are good recommendations. Yeah, for sure. So perfect. Well, Daniel, I really appreciate you coming on this show today and talking with me. Good luck with this film and good luck with all your future films as well.
Thank you so much. And it's great to meet you.
Hey, thank you. We'll talk to you later.
See you.
Bye. A quick plug for the SYS Screenwriting Analysis Service. It's a really economical way to get a high-quality professional evaluation on your screenplay. When you buy our 3-pack, you get evaluations at just $67 per script for feature films and just $55 for teleplays. All the readers have professional experience reading for studios, production companies, contests, and agencies. You can read a short bio on each reader on our website, and you can pick the reader who you think is the best fit for your script. Turnaround time is usually just a few days, but rarely more than a week. The readers will evaluate your script on 6 key factors: concept, character, structure, marketability, tone, and overall craft, which includes formatting, spelling, and grammar. Every script will get a grade of pass, consider, or recommend, which should help you roughly understand where your script might rank if you were to submit it to a production company or agency. We can provide an analysis on features or television scripts. We also do proofreading without any analysis. We will also look at a treatment or outline and give you the same analysis on it. So if you're looking to vet some of your project ideas, this is a great way to do it. We will also write your logline and synopsis for you. You can add this logline and synopsis writing service to an analysis, or you can simply purchase this service as a standalone product. As a bonus, If your screenplay gets a recommend or a consider from one of our readers, you get to list the screenplay in the SYS Select database, which is a database for producers to find screenplays and a big part of our SYS Select program. Producers are in the database searching for material on a daily basis, so it's another great way to get your material in front of them. As a further bonus, if your script gets a recommend from one of our readers, your screenplay will get included in our monthly Best of newsletter. Each month we send out a newsletter that highlights the best screenplays that have come through our script analysis service. This is monthly newsletter that goes out to our list of over 400 producers who are actively looking for material. So again, this is another great way to get your material out there. So if you want a professional evaluation of your screenplay at a very reasonable price, check out www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/consultants. Again, that's sellingyourscreenplay.com/consultants. On the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing writer, director, producing brothers Diego and Julio Halvis. They just did a really cool horror film called American Carnage. They've done a good number of short films as well as a bunch of features. So we talk through all of that, their careers, how they've gotten their films made, and then of course how they got this latest film produced as well. So keep an eye out for that episode next week. That's our show. Thank you for listening.